I am here again with the Cal Parmer. The first episode was the journey, of Calvin Parmer, and I feel like there is an importance in kind of knowing how things started in the beginning of the journey, what people been through, where they've been, to kind of understand where they are now and why they're doing what they're doing now. So, for anybody who didn't tune in, if you want to give another little intro.
My name is Cal Parmer. Native of Buffalo, New York. Moved to Atlanta around 1997. Came back about November of 2015. So it's almost 10 years.
Almost 10 years,
now.
okay.
And, musician here in the city, entrepreneur, amongst other things.
Jack of many things.
I wear a few hats, but most people just know me as a musician here in the city. Glad to be back in Buffalo. It's a fantastic city. As with any place, it has its ups and downs, but overall good people, driven people, tough people that have a great foundation for being successful.
Yeah.
So
So our part 2 today was the conversation was really good, in the first episode, and like I said, it really was just the groundwork and foundation of kind of just what he's done, where he's been, and just a little bit about him. I feel like a lot of the time, so many people know people, but like how much do you really know about people, whether it's like what they've been through, the ups, the downs, what they had to go through to get to where they are right now. So it's kind of nice just to slow down from the chaos of the world and really just get to know those things. And slowing down just helps you appreciate, just a little more, like, wow, I did that, I accomplished that, I never would have seen myself, here or there. So like part 2 today is kind of just more where, you wanted to talk and, more about the music community, because definitely like music is your core.
Yeah. Buffalo has always been, along with it being a football city, a food city.
Yeah.
Along with being a melting pot of different cultures, it's very much a music and art city. Unfortunately, that aspect doesn't get a lot of shine often, which is understandable. We got the bills, which is such a strong aspect of our city and our culture. But Buffalo has some of the most phenomenal musicians, different genres, and a lot of which have been doing some pretty phenomenal things through the years. And a lot of people may not even know the impact we've had in music as a whole, both domestically and internationally. It was funny. I was just talking to one of my friends. He's young. He's maybe about 10 years younger than me. His name is Kevin Camp. And Kevin has multiple Grammys.
Wow.
But comes out of the church, and those who are in church know who he is. But he's produced, like, along being a phenomenal multi-instrumentalist, he's a phenomenal producer, vocalist, arranger, and you don't hear much.
Yeah.
You just don't,
And it's kind of crazy because it's just like people like that, they're like actually the creator. They like put it together, and then it's not to take away from the person who might be performing or like playing it, but they don't have anything to perform or play without that person producing or creating it, and I think that's why I say, like, in the sense of slowing down sometimes and kind of just, there's so much from A to Z that we don't even understand what goes into making it, creating it, producing it. I mean, everything from food to music.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean?
Right.
But we're so spoiled here, where it's instant gratification, certain entitlements. Like, we grab what we need, and like we're good. And there's so many areas in life, and for other people that's not the case. So like, you know, just with music, like really understanding what goes into it to rehearse it, you know, to create it. You between you and I was like, it really takes 3 hours to do this until, you know, I went to see certain things or shows or like what goes into it. And I myself is just like, oh, okay, so the shows that you invite me to, it starts at 5. Oh my God, you got to get there by 1. You know what I mean? Like, we're not factoring in those things where, yeah, you got to set up, you got to do sound check, you got to make sure everybody's on the same page, you know, what are we playing in what order? And there's also like a beauty to it. And that's where that quality comes in, where it's just not always about quantity or doing it the quickest or this and that. Because doing it the quickest can take away from the quality itself.
Absolutely.
You know, so I think it's so important that you can see that you love what you do because you have the understanding that it can't be rushed and the time that it takes to do it right.
No, absolutely. And with most things, people are more focused on the finished product. They don't really...
Guilty.
And that's understandable. Yeah. I mean, you go to a 5-star restaurant, you're not really, unless you have a refined palate, you're not really breaking down every seasoning or any nuance and every subtlety in the food that you're eating, as to the point of wanting to call the chef out and ask, did you use cilantro? Did you like, well, how
There's
long?
There's a hint of.
Yeah, well, how long did you have to caramelize the onions to get the base and you know, and that's cool. That's all. You know, there's no harm, no foul in that. As part of what I do and what most musicians do, artists, any type of thing that you have passion about, that you put your hands to. There's a labor of love that goes into it, and you have to love what you do, and that projects into the finished product, whether, you know, it's appreciated at the level you think it should be appreciated or not. For me, I've been doing this, 40 years, easily. I did my first paid gig when I was 14. So to do something that long and to sometimes go into places where it feels like where you may feel like you're not appreciated, or if you're not focused on the task at hand, it can feel like that, or the budget isn't at a particular place or whatever. That's when you have to decide, okay, the choices that you make and how you spend your time, to where there's a gratification in that. Because what can happen is you can find people who leave here and they don't want to come back. Yeah. Or they leave here and their story's not a great one because they felt the place that they left from didn't appreciate them. Whatever that appreciation needs or should look like. That was never really my story. For me, I always did my best to celebrate Buffalo and send smoke signals and beacons back, shining a light on Buffalo. And even when the opportunity would present itself, if I open a door for someone or look out, for a musician through the relationships that I've, kind of fostered literally over the last 25 to 30 years, I'll do that. And that gives an opportunity for whoever that person is, or the next generation, to be able to forge their own and carve out their own path. I believe that anything we do, it should be for the betterment, and to somehow lay groundwork to be able to make the road easier for someone else who can kind of be prepared to, take up the torch. I don't really tour anymore. One of the things that was, it's a sacrifice, and this is something that I think everyone should think about. Whatever stage you are really in your life, but if you're in your 20s, 30s, maybe even in your 40s, you have to start thinking about these things. If you have loved ones, mother, father, guardian, aunts, uncles, things like that, older brother or sister, start thinking about how you may have to change your life to take care of them. One of the things that probably I would say the biggest thing that kept me here is my father. My father's 84 years old now. In 2016, he had a heart attack at a funeral, of all places.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know if I told you that. I didn't tell you where it was. So he was at a funeral for a cousin of mine. He got up, had words, as he always does, and speaking about the goodness of the Lord and all that. And he walks out. He's feeling a little warm, and he's about to head home and passed out in the parking lot.
Oh my gosh.
So I'm to find out he had a heart attack, and that prompted me even more so to understand that I have to be here. I'm an only child. I have to be here for him. And that's something to think about when we're building our careers, because my career was built around being in the hub of where everything is. Being a successful musician at a level where you have a certain lifestyle. I'm just being honest. I'm not pointing fingers at anybody who's broke or anything around here if they're just doing music. But this environment isn't quite that. Right. If you want to be on a certain level, you have to live where where the hub is.
Yeah.
And I made the decision to change my lifestyle. And just to be able to accommodate living at a particular level that I knew would satisfy me being here. So occasionally, I may go out, do a few things. I built enough things here, both musically and financially, some things behind the scenes to where I'm fine and I do great. Do I miss touring the world? Oh my God, yeah. For me, I used to tell people when they ask about, man, well, what is this artist like? What is it? I was like, man, I almost curse. We're gonna keep like this is a clean language zone. I tell people, all of that is cool, but to be able to see the world on someone else's dime is an experience like no other. I could see the world and have whole entire days where I could just arrive in a city and get a bike. Right. And just ride just ride through and enjoy the culture, barely being able to speak the language, but soaking in the culture, and they're appreciative because you're trying to understand the culture.
You're showing the respect.
Yeah, it's not. It wasn't always staying in hotel rooms, popping bottles, and VIP stuff. There's been some of that too. But one of the most rewarding experiences that I recall having. There were two. The first one was I went to the Netherlands, and this is one of the places where I knew we would arrive in early. Usually you can't check into a hotel until like 2 o'clock with early check-in. So tour bus would typically get to the venue maybe about 6, 7, 8 a.m. Mm-hmm. So I had already map out my day. I go in the venue, find where the showers are, get my laundry going, clean up. They would have catering for us, eat my breakfast, and then I'm grabbing a bike. Find a bike. And I stayed out until sound check, which was like 2 o'clock. Just riding through cobblestone, and going by the waterways and just seeing what the experience is in other parts of the world and how they navigate things, and even talking to people. They can always tell you that usually I'm the only chocolate face that's in the area, so it always sparks great conversation.
You're an interest walking.
Like they know I'm not from around, and that was great. The other time was I was in Ireland, and went to 3 different cities: Galway, Cork, and Dublin. Dublin's cool. It's city vibes, but the other two cities are more like towns,
Yeah.
with all of
Like
the
daily
old buildings,
living.
old structures. And we
Yeah.
did a show. After the show was over, I was invited to come hang out at this pub. The pub took up the city block. It was huge, and we
Crazy.
danced and drank stouts until about 2 a.m. Then afterwards, there was some cool couples that I met, and they were like, "Let's go hang out at our flat is right around the corner." With a terrible Irish accent, by the way. And we went there, and she was a professional clogger.
Oh.
So she danced, or her guy played guitar. We played guitar, and we drank wine. And then next thing, 7 a.m., I'm back on the bus and rolling. But I made friends just from that.
And memories.
Yeah, and memories.
Yeah.
And memories. You know, just the stories.
Yeah.
There are so many. There are so many.
Well, it also too like a few points back, when you were just saying that, just the reflection of your passion when you're doing something.
Yeah.
And that's kind of like I said in one of my previous episodes, just like, I think people misunderstand, like, oh, like the person has been in business, or doing this 10, 20, 30 years. And that's great and all. And there's nothing taken away from that, like, whatsoever. But I think the most important ingredient to almost anything is, it's not what you do, but it's how you do it. Just like it's not what you say, it's how you say it. And, it's such an important factor in, making you unique and different from the rest, in the sense of, when you do go that extra mile, whether it's for a client or a customer, or, I've seen personally firsthand, people have a different respect for you when they're requesting to work with you as a musician, because that's the respect you have built, that you have created for yourself. And now there's an appreciation where, yeah, it would be an honor, for us to work with or hire Cal, because you put the time in, you spent that time, building that. And then outside of that, with you like traveling and being around all these people in different cultures, music makes you forget about the unimportant things, like, race or tradition or like cultures or what you believe in, this and that. And at the end of the day, it's like, I'm probably going to get a little off topic here, but like at the end of the day, for me personally, and I'm a Latina, I guess they consider that color, whatever the case may be, it's overrated for me. It's overrated in the sense, I know there's a reason and there's history and this and that. But like, we are all human. Just because you are black, just because I am, light, whatever the case may be, whatever your skin color, we are all human. It doesn't make you less human because you have a different or darker skin color, whatever the case may be. The genuine differences is, culture, tradition, mindset, and education, because ignorance does not have a color. And I am all for like the women owned and this and that. And I get the black owned thing, this and that. I genuinely get it. For me, it's getting to be too much. Black owned this, black owned that, black owned that. And I get the proudness of it. But what I don't think people are realizing, you're actually almost still creating a version of segregation. And tell me if I'm wrong. You know what I mean? Tell me if I'm wrong. But I feel like it's creating the certain level of segregation even within that culture, where it's just like, you've been around the world, you travel different places, you see the difference in culture and tradition, and it's like in so many other places that it doesn't even matter, like the color of your skin or where you're from or who you are or what you represent. And my point of that is, that's why like I love music so much, because with the right music, it's such a happy place. You look at music from the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, and it was just like everybody was, and not to say there wasn't issues in those times. With every era there is, but it was just a different mindset, and I feel like that reflected, and that's also an importance for like, yes, get out and travel, take away that narrow-mindedness, expand your mindset on, seeing different parts of the world, experiencing, different parts of the world, where you're in Ireland, you're welcomed, by the end of the night you have people who actually live there inviting you to create personal memories,
Yeah. Just to tap back into what you're saying about, Black owned, Latino owned, women owned. Part of being able or having the opportunity to have gone to various places in the world and see other cultures and things like that. One of the questions I would always get the same questions. Why does the U.S. treat you so bad, or this is what the outside world sees. Why do they treat black people so bad? Why do they treat Chinese people so bad? Why do they treat, in some places, even Rhode Island, why did they used to treat the Irish so bad? Man, I wasn't even expecting to go here, but
I know. It's been on my mind.
Yeah, so one of the things is this, and this taps into a lot of different areas, even like businesses and finances, socioeconomic demographics, all of this. It's the same thing. Part of the U.S. experience for people who aren't indigenous to here, whether you're the people who came at the bottom, over in the bottom of boats, you're the people who are escaping some type of political tyranny, to the ones who are maybe just trying to find a better life for their families. This is a place that at one point in time, they want you to abandon your culture for the sake of the flag. They wanted you to forget, as a part of control and indoctrination, who you were. You're not in Africa anymore. You're here. You didn't ask to be here. You're here. And it's funny, it's Black History. It's not Black History Month, but we're approaching Juneteenth.
Yeah.
We expect you to be this. Yeah. Then years later, go back to Africa. It's a confusing experience. The Irish, they came over. Fighters and potato eaters and everything they had to say about them. The Polish. It's the U.S. is portrayed as this melting pot of cultures and experiences, and where you can have civil and political freedoms that you may not be able to have other places. And there's should be a oneness. That's what this country should be built on. It ain't that. It wasn't that. It wasn't. It's big on you forgetting who you are. At least for my culture. I can't speak for everyone, but it's big on my. So the difference is this. I go to other parts of the world and I see other cultures, but they haven't abandoned their culture.
Right.
They just get along. Africa, you can have Africans living in the Netherlands. You can have Chinese living in Nigeria. You can have run into Croatian people and Serbian people living in Ireland, and their culture is still their culture. They're just abandoning. They're not abandoning who they are or what their belief systems were for the sake of where they are. Now here, we move back to the black owned because you come from a history of 400 years of not owning nothing. So that's why we say we're a black owned business. We have to keep it real. Okay, this is 2020. This is 2025. But in 1965, we couldn't vote. Yeah. So it's still a thing of building pride in our culture. The same way we go, to the East Side. It's your culture, man. You can go to certain areas and it still got bodegas and you still start to feel the culture. You could go around the Casanova Park area and you feel the culture. Right. So that's what that is. It's just promoting us bringing pride back to our community and having something that's putting back into the community. Right. when we were disenfranchised for so long. So, and only portrayed as just workers and
good for one thing.
Exactly.
And I think that's good too. And like I said, I feel like, that you were one of the better people to bring that topic up with, because you're very well versed. You've actually literally been to so many parts in the world. And, even when I met you, I knew you had a different mindset. I knew you had a different perspective and outlook on things. And, the more you explained what you did and where you were from, it made sense, why. And I think and like I said, there's because with the Latin culture, we're probably the most prideful of them all. But and like you said though, I wish, I don't know if it's like I said for America or just Buffalo. I can only speak on what I know, but it would be nice for like you said, Buffalo, where people are allowed to have pride in each of their cultures without segregating it. Because unfortunately, Buffalo still struggles to be a segregated city, unfortunately. So like you said, but then there are those pockets of neighborhoods where you go and it's oh, okay, this is nice. I can look over there and it's Hispanic owned or a black owned or Polish, because that's a large population here in itself, and I think it just really boils down to just the respect. Just like I say, you don't have to completely agree or follow what other people believe or what their thoughts are. But there should be a certain level of respect for that person's pride or what they are trying to build. And I think that, is probably one of the biggest struggles with that. But like I say, even with that, it's just I like the newer music is not my cup of tea. It's not. And I've been fortunate enough where with doing home care, I've been surrounded by older, elder people. And the one guy, he was actually Hispanic, but the amount of music he knew, he didn't have a smartphone, so he would always have me find it on YouTube and play it for him. And it was so beautiful because you see these people go back to those times, and it's just the majority of the music that he knew of was not even Latino. It
Absolutely.
was black, white, or the Temptations, or from the 60s and 70s. The man knew. He would write it down because he knew who sang it. He gave me some lyrics. I would find it with that, and it would bring up the song. And you could just see it was just a different time. And you look at the music videos, and people are you just danced. You forgot about everything while you were there. It was just you just seeing the music, how it was the glue that brought it all together while other things were separating them.
No, absolutely. That's one of the premises of music is to tell a story.
Yeah.
And in telling that story, you connect the listener to the person who's telling the story. And the stories that were told during the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, and even somewhat into the 90s were about love.
Pain too.
Love, joy, pain. And at a point, even the political experience and what we all were going through as a people. It wasn't always considered, at least people, the powers that be thought that was a place they didn't want to touch because they felt it wouldn't sell records. But it ended up selling far more records because it tapped into the human experience. How many times I'm older now with a lot more scars. And I got a lot more scars on my spirit, man, to where I've allowed myself to heal, but at the same time, every now and then I'll see something or hear a song that I can relate to, whether I went through that or not, but that it taps into something that I can connect with. Yeah. And every now and then, it's not punk or anything like that. This might happen.
That's okay.
Because you've connected to it. And that's the thing. And I've said this before, music is a conversation. amongst the listener and the person that's delivering the message. That's why there is a responsibility to us as artists to be responsible in what we have to say. Just, you don't wouldn't go to a 5-year-old, and at least you shouldn't, curse and have a profanity in trying to say, not saying you can't be creative in what you're saying, but what you should have to say should mean something in such a way that people can connect to it outside of it always being about sex and money. And how much more can I get, and how, and this, how to hurt this one, and they did me this way, or whatever,
Just becomes angry.
And there should be something positive to say in your music, and even as performing, it's always cool. I love this so much. I love the old. I play everything in terms of my playlists. Can perform any style of music, but I always love when I'm at a venue or doing something and someone older comes up and asks, do I know this? And they just assume that you don't know it because maybe whatever you're playing at the time, or they can't really tell what my age is. And I was like, I got you covered. And then you play it and you just see them literally time travel back to that time of their life. And that's a powerful responsibility to make people forget and remember at the same. Forget their pain, but remember their places of joy. That's at least that's what music does for me, and it's cool to get paid in the interim of doing that. I don't even know if that was the whole plan of us getting back together and talking. Some of this stuff, I try to tie it into business aspects, because people are like, well, how do you make money doing certain things? How do you make, money?
Listen, the first question shouldn't be how you make money. The first question...
Shouldn't be.
Right, but the first question should be, what can you see yourself doing with longevity and passionate enough that it's going to naturally bring you money or make you money? Not that you're never going to think about it, but I think that over time that has switched, where it's just like, well, if it doesn't make me money, I'm not going to do it. You might be missing out on your purpose and your passion that's going to make you way more if you're patient enough to let it build up over 3 to 5 years. No, absolutely.
And that's the best advice that I have. It shouldn't be a money grab.
Right.
Whatever you love to do, that should be what you invest your heart in. Working a day job and jobs, that's nothing more to fund whatever your vision is going to be. That's why, I don't judge, but I'm not big on the starving artist thing. I like being able to go to a nice restaurant. I like being able to go, but I've been there where it's like ramen noodles until the next paycheck, years ago. But so I understand that struggle too. But the camera's off. We still going? We still going? All right, all right. I know. I thought we always go over time. We always want to continue to hold on to our dreams and invest in what we love to do. It may not make money, or it might make you millions, but it's all about being happy doing what you do.
Well, because that's a type of richness that, although it's not tangible, but like you always say, like what is genuinely in your heart will reflect on the outside. And I've seen that, on people that I've known over the years, where it's just like, you taking care of your inside is a real thing.
Absolutely.
Because that's what you look so young, or you look so good, this and that. That's self-care, not only on the outside, but in the inside. Like it's a real thing, Yeah. But my last question for you.
Yes.
So you used to be known as the big hat guy, but we switched it. So now you always have these types of hats, and they always got a different theme. What's the deal with that?
All right. So the large hat. And there's a story. There actually is a story. Like you see a lot of guys now wearing white brim troubadours and things like that. It started as a thing of like, I kept getting confused for other people around here. I'm like, weren't you at, like, no, that wasn't me. That wasn't me. And I almost like, do we all look that much alike? Like, there's no way. But, it became that thing. So as a marketing thing, I said, I have to visually stand out. Now, I'm already not 6'8", whatever, It just, come on, we'll just keep it up. We've had these conversations, So there had to be something that I either did or something that would stand out. Like, my playing is going to do what it does anyway. But in the internet, people are very visual. So my grandfather actually had 2 wide brim hats. And literally, I felt like God gave this to me. He had a hat that he would wear to church. It was black. Then he only had 2 suits.
Yeah.
That and string tie. That look almost like Amish. But that, right?
Yeah.
And then the other one he wore in the field when he would plow.
Wow.
It was like a straw one, but it was wide brim. And I remember we talking. He talked to me about it. I was little. I was really young, and he talked about it. He said, "Well, I wear the hat when I'm in the field to protect me from the sun, so I can labor, and work until the sun can go down." And he said, "But I wear the other hat so I'll never forget who's over my head." So I said, all right. I said, let's try this hat thing. And I got the black, and everybody, I started performing with the big hat. And some people made jokes about it. Hey, Cal's Amish now, that kind of thing. But they never asked what the story was. Very few people, and that's where we have to start being careful. Start asking people stories as to why they do the things that they do.
Representation.
And have a communication, and it may better help you understand them. And I had that, and then I had this strap that would light up whenever I play, like it literally to the pulse of the music. But everybody remember that, and they remember the big hat, and pretty much from 2017 into 2017 through the pandemic, I would wear this hat, and at one point I just stopped wearing it, and I said I'm going to return to it, but I was doing a lot more things, and I was doing some things out of some personal pain that I had. But I'm big on pain being used as fuel. Yeah. It's used as fuel for your visions, and I was doing a lot more shows and at like larger scale performances and events and things like that. And then when the pandemic hit, I immediately just slowed all that down and kind of taper back. The plan is to go back to it, though. I actually still have a few hats. Yeah. I actually started, and he needs to get to work. His name is Richie Hunter. He's a phenomenal hat and purse. He's just a fashion designer. To me, he's a Buffalo icon. Yeah. He works closely with Julia with Fig. Okay. Yeah. So he's, we talked about doing a few designs to kind of bring it back, but that's the story behind that.
These are just your interim.
Yeah, these are just cool. This is a company that I endorse called Gurin Brothers. So they always make these quirky, cool. This one glows in the dark. Oh, wow. They're just really cool trucker hats and things like that with different sayings on the things. But that's the story behind my grandfather was inspiration for that.
Yeah. Well, this has been the part 2 of the journey of Cal Parmer. I love doing these episodes because I literally walk away with, even if it's one more piece of new knowledge, you literally learn something new every day. So thank you for joining me again.
It's my pleasure.
Yeah. And I hope you continue to tune in and subscribe.
Subscribe. Subscribe. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Turn that camera on.
That's fine.